back again with another video, and today we're reading Shadow Chapter 4. Now, hopefully you guys saw Shadow Chapter 3 and 2 and 1. Hopefully you enjoyed those videos, and soon we'll be moving on to a new book. But while we're here right now, we're reading Shadow Chapter 4. Let's start. By the end of the weekend, the whole family was in love with Shadow, and he loved them all, too. The puppy and the bean seemed to have an extra special bond. They were never apart. They roamed all over the house together. Sometimes the bean was crawling and the puppy was scampering after him. Sometimes Shadow was trotting ahead and the bean was trying to keep up. They napped together, curled up on a soft fleecy dog bed, and took turns playing with the bean's favourite stuffed toys. Shadow seemed to think it was his job to protect and watch over the bean, as if the bean was a younger puppy who needed his care. Shadow was a really good puppy. He already was most housebroken, and he usually whimpered at the door if he needed to go out, and he loved to cuddle. Lizzie spent most of his Sunday evening with Shadow sleeping on her lap while she watched the movie. She loved the little puppy noises he made in his sleep while she stroked his soft silky ears. Once in a while he would wake part way up, stretch and yawn, and kiss her on the chin. That was the best. Lizzie and Charles had a hard time leaving the house on Monday morning when it was time to head for school. "Goodbye, Shadow," Lizzie said, scooping him up for one more hug. She kissed the top of his silky head. "You be a good boy, okay?" She put him down and he bounded back to the bean's side. Shadow was sorry to see the girl and boy leave, but now he could concentrate on the smallest person in the house. He loved his new friends so much. Charles and his best friend Sunny chatted about the new puppy all the way to school. Lizzie walked behind them, wishing she had a best friend too. It would be fun to tell someone about all the funny things that Shadow had done over the weekend, like sticking his head into the bean's toy chest and pulling out a stuffed bear that was twice as big as he was. Charles was lucky. When the Petersons had moved to Littleton last summer, Charles had found a best friend who lived right next door. But there were no girls Lizzie's age in the neighbourhood. She was friendly with most of the girls in her class, but she didn't have a best friend. Often at recess, Lizzie spent her time reading or looking things up on the computer instead of playing jump ball or kickball. Lizzie didn't really mind that, but once in a while she thought it would be nice to have someone to share her secrets or exciting news with. She thought about telling the whole class about Shadow during their morning meeting, but at the last minute she decided not to. Somehow she wanted to keep him to herself for a little while. Knowing she was going to have to find him a good home and give him up soon made him seem even more precious to her. Anyway, that day everyone was talking about Helen Keller. Mrs. Abeson had asked how many of them had been reading the book over the weekend, and lots of hands went up. "What interesting things did you find about Helen Keller?" Mrs. Abeson asked. "I don't see how Helen Keller could climb trees and stuff like that," Noah said. "I mean, she couldn't see anything." "Blind people can do a lot of things," said a girl named Maria Santiago. She was even newer to Littleton Elementary than Lizzie. Usually Maria was really shy. Lizzie was a little surprised to see her speak up. "That's right," said Lizzie. "I found out this weekend. I spent a lot of time wearing a blindfold so I could see what it was like. It wasn't so hard to learn my way around the house." Lizzie didn't mention how many times she'd almost tripped over toys that Shadow and the bean had left in place. "The only thing was, I didn't feel really blind because I could still see light and dark through the blindfold." Again, Maria put up her hand. "Lots of blind people see light and shadow," she said softly. "The world isn't completely dark for most of them." Lizzie looked at her. All of a sudden, Maria was seeming like a know-it-all. What had happened to the girl who hardly ever spoke in class unless she was called on? Lizzie shrugged. "Maybe," she said. "Another thing I noticed was that my hearing did not get really any better. Supposedly when you're blind, your other senses like hearing and touch start to make up for it, but maybe that takes a while to happen." Maria was shaking her head. Mrs. Abeson called on her. "Maria, did you have something to say?" "Well, it's only kind of a myth that blind people can hear better. Their hearing is the same. They just learn to pay more attention to what they hear." Mrs. Abeson nodded. "That makes sense," she said. Lizzie frowned. Wasn't that the same thing she had just said? And how did Maria know all this stuff anyway? Lizzie couldn't help being curious. But Mrs. Abeson had moved on to asking everyone to get their maths homework out, so there was no chance to find out anymore. The rest of the day dragged by. Lizzie couldn't wait to get home and see Shadow again. When the last bell rang, she grabbed her jacket and met Charles and Sammy outside. The three of them ran almost the way home. And also, we're going to do Chapter 5 as well today. So, hopefully you enjoyed Chapter 4, and now we're going to do Chapter 5. Shadow, Lizzie called when she and Charles got home. Here, pup. She was dying to see the little black puppy. Where was he? We're up here, Mum called from upstairs. I'm just putting away some laundry. Be right down. Charles and Sammy headed into the kitchen to find a snack. Sammy was always eating at the Petersons. Lizzie knew he'd head straight to the cookie jar and help himself. Lizzie walked into the front hallway and looked up the stairs just to find the Bean running towards the landing on the second floor. He was laughing his googly laugh and running down and waving his hands in the air, and he wasn't watching where he was going. Until a few months ago, the Petersons had always closed off the top of the stairs with a baby gate so the Bean wouldn't fall downstairs. But lately they had not used the gate as much. The Bean was getting bigger, and he knew about being careful near the stairs. Usually. But not this time. He was playing Chase Me with Shadow, and he was running as fast as his little legs could go. Watch out, Lizzie yelled. Adam! She hardly ever used his real name, but it popped right out of her mouth. She started to run up the stairs, hoping she could catch her little brother if he started to tumble. Just then, Shadow put on a burst of speed and ran towards the Bean, coming between the toddling boy and the top of the stairs. Oh no, Shadow could tell the little person was in danger, but he could help his little friend. He would push him away from the stairs so he wouldn't fall. Faster, faster! The puppy bumped into the Bean, shoving him back onto the landing. The puppy bumped into the Bean, shoving him back on the landing. The Bean sat back with a surprised look on his face. Lizzie wondered whether he was going to burst in tears. Then after a moment, he started laughing again. Lizzie charged the rest of the way upstairs, knelt down next to the Bean and put an arm around him. Are you okay, buddy? She asked, even though she could see that he was. Good dog, Shadow. You saved him. What happened? Mum asked, coming out of Charles's room. Mum, Shadow was amazing. He kept the Bean from falling down the stairs, Lizzie reported. She scooped the pup up into her arms and gave him a big kiss on the head. He gave her that serious look of his before he kissed her back. Shadow didn't know what all the fuss was about, but he liked it. Kisses and hugs were always so good, but so was running around. Running around was really good. Shadow struggled to get down. Uppy! Yelled the Bean, jumping to his feet for another game of Chase Me. Mum sighed. Good for Shadow. But I best we gotta get that gate up for a while. These two have been running wild all day. You'd think they would tire out. But no, they just tire me out. Lizzie smiled at her son and her puppy, but then gave Lizzie a serious look. As much as the Bean loves Shadow, we still really do have to find him a home, and soon. Lizzie nodded. Okay, she said, but it has to be the right home. Shadow can't go to any old family. He's a special dog. By then, Charles and Sammy had joined them. They were each munching on an apple. Hi, Shadow, Charles said, giving the puppy a hug. You are a special dog. I know how we can find him a home, Sammy volunteered. When he, Lizzie, and Charles were sitting in Lizzie's room a little later, they had offered to watch Shadow and the Bean for a while so Mrs. Peterson could work on an article she was writing. We could take him to the rummage sale at the recreation centre this weekend. What? Selling for 50 cents? Lizzie asked. I don't think so. This dog came from a good breed. He has papers. That means he's worth hundreds of dollars. But we're not going to sell him for hundreds of dollars either, are we? Asked Charles. Lizzie shook her head. No, we'll give him away. He needs to go to the right family. Lizzie pulled out a piece of paper and started to make a list. They should have a big house, because he needs a lot of room to run around, she began. Or at least a big yard, said Charles. Yes, said Lizzie, with a fence around it so he'll be safe. I think the family should like to do stuff outdoors, because Shadow's going to be an outdoorsy kind of dog. He wouldn't like to be cooped up inside all the time. Lizzie made some more notes. She looked over at the Bean and Shadow, who were finally napping on her bed. Shadow was snuggled right up next to the Bean. He was snoring a little, just a tiny little puppy snores. "I think Shadow should go to a home with a little kid like the Bean," she said softly. She wrote that down. Then she read the list out loud. "The perfect home sounds just like our home," Charles said. "Why can't we keep Shadow?" "I wish we could," Lucy said. "She really, really did. But I guess the timing just isn't right, with our vacation and all. At least we get to keep him for a while. That's the cool thing about fostering puppies. We get to spend time with all sorts of different dogs." That was chapter 4 to 5, everyone. Hopefully you liked this video, and see you in another one. Zion, signing off.